He did.
Good to see you. How's your summer going? Yeah, really. It's really hot out now.
I mean, for
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I would like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Phillips, roll call.
Ralph Wentz. Here. Amy White.
here.
Corey Oakham.
Here.
Taylor Christian. Here. Terry Lally.
Here.
All right, first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. These were the minutes for the meetings held on June 11th, the special meeting on June 29th, and July 9th. Do I have a motion? Taylor moves. Do I have a second?
I second.
Terry seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the treasurer report. Mr. Phillips?
Our regular general fund, $2,231,901.67. Encumbered against that, $27,081.60. Leaving an unencumbered balance of $2,204,820.07. That's our regular general fund. In case for the newer members, there's a lot of zeros on here, and the document is a little longer than normal. That's because it's the June report, and I'm required by the state auditors to have every fund listed. We have the ability to list them with or without zeros, so some of the older accounts that we're not allowed to delete because you need privileges that I don't have for protective reasons to delete those. They show up every June. So this is a little longer report than normal, but a lot of the accounts, probably 4 pages of accounts that they're all zeros, there's no activity. Going back to all funds, we did advance last meeting so that we wouldn't have any funds in the negative, so I won't bother with the grants. So I'll do all funds, $3,771,819.72. Total encumbrances, $56,265.35, leaving an unencumbered balance of $3,715,554.35. This did mark the June 30th, did mark the end of our fiscal year, as you know. We had a June 29th meeting to do the final appropriations. Everything closed pretty easily. We had an easy closing, which is a good thing. That means there was no problems reconciling any accounts or any trouble with any negative accounts or anything like that. We're off to a pretty good start getting orders out and processed for next school year. That's the first thing we do after we get everything wrapped up for the last fiscal year. So summer is kind of busy. I do want to mention the 2 women who work in my office, Amy Senapati, our payroll coordinator, and April Haviger, who is the budgetary coordinator. We got, again this year, an auditor award for fiscal year 17's audit from Auditor Dave Yost, and it's attributable to the whole office and I want to publicly recognize them for the work that they do in keeping us in good enough shape, that actually very good shape, that we continue to get those awards. You also have an appropriations account, a revenue account, and a check pay report. And if there are any questions on any of those, I can entertain them now. If not, I think I'm done.
All right, any questions or discussions with Mr. Phillips? Seeing as there's none, do I have a motion for financial reports?
So moved.
Amy moves, do I have a second?
Second.
Ralph seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is good news.
I'm going to defer it until the June, July, August report for me, as we don't have any of our directors or supervisors or principals here this evening. And that's why you'll notice that under the good news and other reports, there's a limited number of names. I think we have Mr. Christian and Mrs. Lally.
Okay, good enough. All right, first thing up that we're going to talk about is a resolution to proceed with renewing all of 3 existing tax levies. Mr. Phillips, would you like to expand upon that?
On July 9th, the board voted to put an intent to combine the 3 levies, current existing levies from 1988, 1996, and 2004, up for renewal, and combine the renewal to vote on them one time rather than in 3 different years. They would otherwise be voted in calendar year 19, calendar year 20, and calendar year 22, 23, which now.
23.
Yeah. So I get confused because that one was actually put on in 2012, so I want to say 2002, but we put that one on in 2022. At any rate, in order to do a levy these days, the legislature requires by Ohio Revised Code that we put the initial intent, and then after within a week or 2, you have another meeting and do a resolution to proceed. So this resolution to proceed, once adopted, I would deliver tomorrow to the Board of Elections, and then we would be on the ballot for November. So that's the purpose of this resolution.
All right, any further comments or discussion from any of the board members?
I am required to advise the board that section 121.22, public notice of the meeting, you can see Mr. Alves is here, did notice notify the indicator as well. All that has been properly taken care of.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or discussion from the board members? All right, seeing as there's none, the next thing for discussion is approval of high school cross-country camp. Mr. Dunn?
Thank you. For the last several years, we've transported our student athletes on the cross-country team to Butler, Ohio, as the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. They participate in a four-day team camp. It's in August 12th through the 15th. I would recommend that the board approve our team to travel to the park. And it's been very beneficial for our team members. They'll be chaperoned by coaches, and they will be transported by school transportation.
Any discussions or comments or questions from the board members? Seeing as there's none, next up for discussion is the 2018-2019 breakfast and lunch prices.
Last month, we had Mrs. Caitlin Pierce, our food service manager, and Kathy Casadakis, representative from the nutrition group. They were here talking about the need through the Healthy and Hunger-Free Kids Act and federal and state guidelines to raise our lunch prices. It would be by 25 cents for the elementary and by 5 cents in the middle and high school respectively. So our lunch prices, again, would go from $1.25 for the elementary students to $2.75, grades K through 4, and grades 5 through 12 will be $2.85, and adults will be $3.75 for the 18-19 school year.
Any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, so that's pretty much just to balance out the cost of the reduced lunch program, correct? The increase in price?
Not necessarily, no. By federal guidelines, the lunches, depending on what that cost is throughout the United States, federal guidelines, it would have to be incrementally raised to stay within those boundaries. And I don't know what they are, but certainly the guidelines are telling us each almost the last 3 years, we've raised them by a nickel or 10 or 15 cents. So it's kind of minimal. The middle school and high school, elementary is a little bit more, 25 cents. But we do have to raise them. If not, if we waited until, let's say, 2020, it might be a 50 or 75 or $1 raise, which would not be incrementally satisfying to most people. So
I seem to recall the elementary had not been raised, and that's the reason it was 20 or 25 cents, because it had not been raised for a year or two.
it does not, maybe to answer your question, does not affect the free or reduced lunch prices in this case.
Good question. Any other questions or comments? Seeing as there's none, next point of discussion is school resource officer agreement for 2018-2019.
And right along with last year at this time, we approved my recommendation to employ a school resource officer through Beaver Township. The district portion is $34,500 for the entire school year as we partner with Beaver Township from a financial and safety perspective. And as I mentioned last year, I can't imagine in 2018 and in the future not having an SRO, a trained SRO, an SRO that's familiar with our students, our staff, and our community. So it's a necessity. It's an absolute necessity to have an SRO, and for that money, we're fortunate that we have communities that are willing to partner with us.
Any comments or discussions on that? All right, seeing as there's none, next on our agenda is public participation, excuse me. Once again, before opening it up, I just want to reiterate our policy by bylaw 0169.1. We're going to do public participation first, and then we'll have non-agenda items later. So first is going to be the agenda items. Anybody wishing to comment can step up to the microphone. You'll have 2 minutes for any agenda items. Nope, I think on the front.
Hold the bottom, just push in.
It doesn't matter, I don't need anything. Have a question with regard to the levy. Why is it going on for 10 years?
They're currently on for 10 years. What happened in 2009, the legislature they changed the law that the original 5-year levy could go up to 10 years. And that was because across Ohio, because of multiple levies, it seemed like every year people were complaining, every year there's a levy on the ballot. Well, starting in 2009, we changed to 10 years, and over the time that they voted in 9, 10, and then in 12, all of our 5-year levies became 10-year levies. And so we're just staying with the 10-year period.
So we're not required to, we could go with a lesser time period.
Good.
But we've chosen to go 10. So basically, if it gets approved this November, anybody who has a kid in kindergarten won't get a say on how you spend their money again other than via electing the board until that kid is a freshman in high school. And the only reason I bring that up is because 3 years ago, you guys tore this community apart by putting on an additional levy that you all insisted we needed. We were doom and gloom, we laid off a music teacher, cut people's salaries, because we absolutely had to have another 900,000. We and Mr. Christian helped defeat that levy because I was pretty confident we didn't need the money. It turns out I was right. Right now, your current 5-year forecast shows that you are solvent through 2022, correct? Based on current projections.
And that has the renewals already factored in, correct?
Yeah, the renewal, I'm not opposed in principle to you guys putting them together. I am greatly opposed to them being 10 years. I just think 10 years is too long to trust you guys or any other government entity for that matter with my tax money factoring me a set. That's my big objection is not to the consolidation, but to the time frame that you guys are choosing. I just think it's too darn long. 5 years, 6 years max is about all I would go for. If you choose to keep it at 10 years, you will have active opposition to your life.
Yep, the students, thank you. Any other comments for public participation?
I just want to ask, if for some reason this levy would not pass,
Mrs. Freed, could you ask Mrs. Freed to come up so she knows?
Yeah, can you use the mic? Can we get that on? Yeah.
I just want to ask. Okay.
Thank you. I'm just asking if for some reason, this was brought to my attention, I didn't realize that there was a renewal levy that did not pass when we had Mr. Hall. And I'm just asking, we're putting 3 together, right? So if for some reason that would not pass, what does that mean? Does that mean we're just done?
First, let me correct the information. We have 3 levies. One was originally voted in 1988, one was originally voted in 1996, and one was originally voted in 2004. Those all have always been renewed. The 1988 got renewed 5 times. The 1996, I believe, has been renewed 3 times. And the reason is because of 2009 changing to 10 years, and then the 2004 was renewed in 2009, and in 2009, when the law was changed, it was renewed for 10 years, and that's the one that's coming up now.
Okay, but if for some reason it wouldn't, what do we do then? Can we still
Well, we can do the same
re-vote?
thing as if any one of those things, any one of them individually went down, we're in trouble yet again. So yes, the $1.7 million total, if the renewal went down, which would defy our whole history, we'd be in trouble. But even if our smallest $430,000 one went down, we're gonna be in trouble. So
Are you asking if this one this year goes down, what do we do? We can put them single,
We can
up
separate
singly.
them.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I was afraid if you put all 3 at one time and the voters say no, then are we out because we put them all 3 together? No, we're
If the voters
okay.
say no to consolidation, then we can go one by one.
That's why we're putting on a year early.
Okay, so we're okay
the
then.
law provides that the year that a levy expires, which the first one expires December 31st of 2019. So in May of 19 and in November of 19, we can attempt to renew that levy so that we can continue to collect it January 1st of 2020. The law also allows you to put anything on the ballot in November of the year preceding the year that levy expires. So this is kind of, I saw this as an opportunity to say, public, if you would like to vote once, first of all, it saves us a little bit of expense, election expense money, as far as what the Board of Elections charges us to hold elections. And it would reduce the number of requests that we would be asking you, in 19 and 20 and then 23. You got to come out and vote again. So if you don't want to do it, then you have the opportunity to say that.
But we're okay if for some reason you put all 3 together.
If it doesn't work this November, I mean, the board could try it again in May, but they would have to discuss that. They probably would just say, well, let's just put the other renewal, let's go back to the old way.
Okay.
So this is I'm looking at this as a good opportunity to really consolidate things and just do it a little more efficiently, because the argument on the other side, maybe Mr. French's side, is I want the ability to take money off you anytime, and that's fine, except it's never happened because most people don't feel that way.
You had a renewal fail in the last 10 or 12 years ago. There was a renewal levy that failed right after the school bond issue was.
Right, and it passed later that
Well,
year.
yeah, they're just mad about the bond issue. Question with November though.
Is there any other participants for public participation?
Someone has a question.
If it fails this November,
Mr. Frenchek, you already reached your time.
I'm just asking a question.
You already reached your time now.
But will you have to pay in next May?
Mr. Frenchek, to answer your question, would we have to pay? Yes. To put it
But
on?
you don't have to pay this November,
Yes, you do.
correct?
Yeah, you do.
You still have to pay, it's just less.
What's the difference between November and May as far as cost?
It depends who else is on, that's the thing. In November, typically with gubernatorial, presidential elections, whoever else, police, fire, and either township, however many different entities are on, split the cost.
Mr. Lynch, you said something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, speak to Richard's point a little bit. So one of my concerns, you weren't here when we discussed it the first time, but, was that a number of things, pros and cons about lumping them together or not. What I would say is by going on a year early and lumping them together, that absolutely will give the voters their chance to either say, yeah, I want them all grouped together in 10 years, for 10 years or not. I would still say that if that was to fail pretty overwhelmingly, that when we obviously would come back in 2019 and in the May primary and put up the first of the 3 that are going to expire. What I will say is that when we put those up each time, obviously the taxpayer would have 3 chances for 3 renewals, but it would still be, in my opinion, that each of those would be put up for a 10-year period. The difference being is that now, to your point, people would have 3 chances to, but irregardless, without any of those 3, we obviously, if you look at Tim's 5-year forecast, would be devastating and stuff. And I think, I think that's what, as we go out and try to educate people to, to read the positives, also you can talk about those negatives, and I think people will ultimately get a chance. But I think trying it this one time in the fall election, I think will give the board a fairly good idea of what people feel. But I would still recommend, as each of those come up, that we would do it as a 10-year hit, so you're not, you would constantly, if you did them individually, almost every election ask them for a renewal, not quite stuff there. So I think that's what we'll find out seeing here and stuff.
My main concern is if it fails this November, if consolidation fails, you only have 2 shots at it next year.
That is correct.
One in the spring, and in 2019, you'll probably be the only thing on the ballot, because that election, that's gonna cost it will cost $15,000 or more.
We don't know what the cost will be, obviously, because we don't know what will be on the ballot.
Based on the additional 3 years.
But I would agree that it probably will cost more to put it on the spring ballot than it would wait until the fall ballot. But we've always, in the year of renewals, I don't believe there's a single time that we haven't gone up on this, when we first can go out there, and obviously it would cost more in the spring election than the fall election.
Is there any other participant?
I just have a question on the school resource officer. Are you just looking to renew, like Mr. Hartman, or are you going to bring in 2 officers? I know there was mention of possibly having another officer on site. My question or concern as a parent with drop off in the mornings, the elementary side is crazy. There's been kids, possibly walking and parents are, speeding in because they're running late. I understand, but one idea was with the chain, with the cones. That was a great idea. Mr. Matus, he had that put in. That has helped tremendously, but I'm just thinking, to keep all the children safe in the morning, is there a possibility to have, another officer on hand just to make sure things are flowing the way they should be, to get the traffic?
To answer your first question, this would just be for keeping the current school resource officer. As far as the second, I think we're constantly going to be looking at different ways that we can make this place even more secure than it already is.
Okay.
Mr. Dunn, do you want to add to that at all?
I do have more information for that to help answer your question later on in this meeting, but to answer your first question, the 34,500 is for the SRO through Beaver Township, not for anyone else other than that particular position.
Okay.
And I will be talking and potentially even recommending down the road maybe additional help.
Yeah, because I know I had stressed some concern to Mr. Matus and to Officer Hartman, and like he said, he's so busy sometimes on the high school side that, there's concerns on the elementary side and middle school side that he can't get to, and at that point you're just rating what's the most important problem at that time. So
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. We have looked at the possible other things also to make it safer. Yes, good. That's definitely one of our priorities, is the safety of the kids.
Any other participants? All right, seeing as there's none, we're going to go through and vote. First up is resolution to combine the 3 levies into one. Do you have a motion?
So move.
Mr. Wentz moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Christian seconds. Roll call.
Ralph Wentz,
Yes.
Amy White,
Yes.
Corey Oakham,
Yes.
Taylor Christian. Yes. Mary Lally.
Yes.
Next up is the approval of high school cross-country team camp. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. White moves. Do you have a second?
I second.
Mrs. Lally seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the breakfast and lunch prices for 2018-2019. Do you have a motion?
A motion.
Terry motions. Do you have a second?
Second.
Amy seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the school resource officer agreement for 2018-2019. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Taylor moves. Do you have a second?
Second.
Terry seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is non-agenda items for public participation. Any participants?
I would just have one request, can you guys not have 7 o'clock in the morning special meetings? Because, I mean, if you look at the past history, I mean, I've got the one from 2009, where they came and built the baseball field because it said, if we didn't build a baseball, we were gonna lose our baseball and softball team. Nothing good has ever happened at a 7:30 in the morning meeting, or 7 o'clock in the morning meeting.
With
I
the
just don't
exception of
see
the
the necessity for
appropriations, with the exception of the appropriations, I don't care what the board does, but I need to do the final appropriations at the very last 11th hour of the fiscal year, because that's when all the numbers are final. And so that when I deliver them to the county auditor for certification, yeah, all the expenses for that year are in. So that's and that's typically the only thing we do at that meeting, unless there's an emergency, hire or something like that.
And actually, that was my fault because it was the day of the golf outing and maybe in other boosters, I asked, requested it to be earlier so I could make sure I was there.
So you make it early.
I did. So that was actually my fault.
All right, any other participation?
Is this when we ask the question that has nothing to
Yep.
do with what you're doing?
Yep, yes it is.
That's me.
That's you? Come on up.
I'll probably get in trouble for asking this question because Mr. Dunn is a wonderful boss. I have no complaints about him. But I got my letter from Mr. Dunn. And no, you're okay too. I mean, it's all right. But in the letter, it said that our kindergarten bus ride is not going to be till the 24th. And that's the week of school. And I want to know why, if you guys have anything to do with that, is it the board or is it the teachers who decides what that's going to be? Because we've always, and I've been here for a while, we have always done that before school starts because the children maybe have never ridden a bus before. Now, Corey, you remember your first day when you stepped on that bus? That's a scary feeling.
It wasn't scary because I had a good bus driver.
And thank you, Corey. But, I just want to know why we're not doing it before they actually have to come to school. Why we're waiting and doing it after school is already in for the 5 days.
Yeah, our kindergarten students are not starting necessarily on the 20th, like everyone else.
Is that what it is?
Last year either. So we have a different start, a delayed start for those kids as we're going through different assignments, different groupings in that kindergarten classroom. They do have an opportunity, and it hasn't been released yet, but there will be on August 18th, which is a Saturday, a day in the driver's seat from a school bus driver's perspective. It's a public safety event where kids are welcome to come here, get on the bus, talk to drivers. It's not a rodeo, but there will be a number of other districts coming here. And we have the same opportunity at Jackson Milton Schools to be a live demonstration, gifts for kids, come out and meet Buster the Bus. You know who Buster is. You've gone through that before. But in terms of that first day, it is not the 20th.
Okay, I'm sorry, but my concern is the children first. And I know on that day, when we take them for their first bus ride, there's tears, there's crying, everybody's so upset they have to leave mom and dad. And mom and dad are just about as bad to put their child on that bus. And that's taken.
There really isn't a really great day for any of that, but we will acclimate them as they come.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Any other participants? All right, seeing as there's none, Mr. Dunham.
I do have some updates here for June, July, and August, which is just around the corner here. Obviously, July is normally a pretty quiet month. As you can see, we have less employees in here. And with that said, many thanks to our custodial staff that's working in the month of July, trying to get our building ready for everyone's return in August. Thanking all of our departments, and I talked a little bit about this last month, our food service, maintenance, Mrs. Freedy just mentioned transportation. We've had a number of people in the bus garage getting buses ready this today and tomorrow. We have bus inspections, so that's a big deal in terms of getting potentially 22 buses, with spares out on the road and stickered for the 18-19 school year. One of the things I wanted to talk about, the meeting before our board meeting at 6 o'clock tonight was our celebrating 50 years of South Range Local Schools committee. We've had a number of people that have been at the last meeting and the one back on July 9th. We're talking about banners in our building and at the fall sports venue over at the stadium, some flyers. We're looking at shirts for all employees with the 50 years logo on it, honoring South Range Local School District. We're talking about bringing back classes by decades, the 70s, 80s, 90s, of course, 2000 and 2010 and on. Special event could be our first and our 50th class graduation, which would happen, of course, at the May commencement in 19. Opportunities for classes to come back and tour the building, to be part of some reunions or other events school-wide. But at this point, we're in the planning stages and just trying to really educate ourselves on what's happened over the last 50 years and reaching out to those alumni and hopefully get them back to see how things have changed and how things have become better with the legacy that they've left over the last 49 years. So we're really looking forward to it. It's an exciting part to be part of the 50th anniversary of South Range Schools. But each time we meet, each time we have a board meeting, I can pass along more information. We have a tag day on August 4th. There will be a flyer that will go out with our athletes as they go door to door, maybe outlining some of the things we're able to do. But as I previously mentioned, we're in the preliminary and planning stages and a lot to get done, and we need anyone's help. So if anyone that would like to be part of this, the next meeting is scheduled for July 31st at 6 p.m. in the library. July 31st, 6 p.m. in the library. Just looking for some help and some ideas, and well, it's work. It's really work to really get out and recognize the first 49 classes of South Range. To Mrs. Frommel's point, school safety continues to be really paramount in what we do here. On opening day for staff, for all employees, that's August 17th. We've been working with Beaver Township Police, Fire, and Green Township Fire, and our neighboring law enforcement agencies. We're going to be holding a mock active shooter drill on the 17th. So all of our employees will be participating in that drill for about 2.5 hours in the elementary, middle, and high. In the unlikely, but we have to be prepared if this were to happen, that we can have things in place and we can really try to combat any issues that, whether it's an active shooter, whether it's any other type of threat. Of course, things we have that haven't happened here but are out there in other districts, whether it's a bomb threat, emergency evacuation because of maybe a gas leak, whatever it might be. We're going to practice that on the 17th in the morning after our normal State of the Schools meeting and meetings that we have throughout the morning. But many thanks to Beaver Township, Brian Hartman, our school resource officer, and Chief Frost, and again the neighboring districts that are willing to send their law enforcement folks in. Trying to make it as realistic as possible. Our staff absolutely will be aware of what's going on, but I think they need to hear and see what it could potentially be like, and try to go through a mock active shooter drill and then come back in here at the end of that and kind of reconvene and discuss what went right and what went wrong. So looking forward to that. Not something we like to talk about, but certainly something we need to practice. Some other thoughts, and along Mrs. Frommel's lines, I will be talking to the board, and this is really one of the things out in open session, but also in terms of personnel and pay. I've spoken to Chief Frost at Beaver Township, looking at a part-time security officer, someone that might be able to come here from 7 to 11 or 11 to 3 every single day. Title IV funds now permit us to use money for security. The cost, I'm envisioning around $12,000 to $13,000 for a part-time security officer. I just see that person, wherever Brian Hartman, our school resource officer, is now. If he's to the north, our other security officer would be to the south. If he's in a meeting with students or staff or parents, that other employee, that part-timer, would be able to assist, whether it's in the parking lot or other issues that may happen in the K-12. There's many things we can do, from technology to software, but real people, personnel, just having that visibility and not knowing when that person's going to be here, I think is an important piece. So I just envision a work schedule that would be standard for individuals. I would not be able to predict the presence or the absence or what day or what time they're going to be here. I really, truly, I would want to know, but I don't believe anyone else really needs to know that. That person will be trained in law enforcement just like everyone else is that's on Beaver Township's police department. Brian Hartman will be the primary lead, but this person again will work opposite of Brian during the school day. So it's not another full-time person, but potentially could be part-time with Beaver Township's assistance.
Mr. Dunham, Beaver Township does split Officer Hartman's wages with us, our part.
Yes, and I don't want to say it's 50%. I'm not sure that's the case.
They pick up. So they're helping us with
Yes.
part-time.
Some other comments. Our stadium update, footers, foundations for the team room will happen this week. You may have noticed some cranes out at the football stadium today. Qualite is the company that furnished and installed our stadium lighting. They came back with a retrofit, better version. It's free of charge. They're swapping those out this week, the new LED lights. If you've been near the band shell walls have been painted. The ceiling in the band shell will be installed this week as well. And interior lights, thanks to Brian Krumbacher and Dickey Electric, have been mounted, and also exterior lights on the band shell. I do have one letter of correspondence I wanted to read. This is from the 2018 South Range Raiders baseball team. Dear South Range Board of Education Administration, thank you for the opportunity and support to help make South Range Raiders baseball team possible with a beautiful facility to play on. Buses, drivers, umpires, coaches, and support staff. We're beyond thrilled to bring home the first state championship title for a team sport. We were so overwhelmed with the warmest of welcome when the bus pulled into the school parking lot to a huge crowd of family, students, and community. Raider proud, the 2018 South Range baseball team and coaches. Very nice. And lastly, just asking everyone here in our community, keep in your thoughts and prayers. Mrs. Debbie Heberlin, Robbie may recognize that name. Debbie's been an assistant custodian here for 23 years. Debbie suffered a stroke last week. She has now been moved to a rehab facility. Should know more information about her in the next day or two, but wonderful lady. Again, suffered a stroke and was in St. E's, but has been released, and not certain of her status or how long she'll be in the rehab. But Debbie Heberlin, Debbie Robb. That's my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up on the agenda is executive session. We would be going in for Ohio Revised Code 121.22 for the purpose of confidential discussion of employment of a public employee or official, to discuss compensation of an employee, to consider the sale of property at competitive bidding, and to discuss school security protocol. Will somebody move? Ralph moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Amy seconds. Roll call.
Gil Christian? No. Carrie Lally?
Yes.
Ralph Wentz? Yes. Amy White?
Yes.
Corey Oak?
Yes. The board enters executive session at 7:38 p.m.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're going to school by yourself. She's sporting her shirt. You know, 100 wins is a count. We honestly, we have great support. I think it will.
Because she wasn't going to stay office.
Feels different.
I'm not.
At 10 years old.
He said it last week. Me too.
I bet Corey. I bet Corey. I'll bet we didn't hear much of that. I just,
My husband says it's a onesie deal because you're saying it.
it is my complaint that you should not just get to vote on how much money, their control of your money every 10 years. That means once, basically on average, once in a student's lifetime in South Ranch, his mom and dad get to vote on a financial.
But you're not only looking at the
And then you start watching.
I think if you're doing your job, you know, the only reason I want to go down is because I should get to vote on it. If you're not, I should get to say no. I want to do that. More than every 10 years. Yeah, I've said that. I would the levy, I would the levy committee get rid of Oklahoma. They should have never put it on, Terry, you know that. Lazy. The community nobody supports it. Middle school is great. Everyone is against it. And that's open enrollment is why you will never pass the church. And I would have to look to raise my taxes, is why I don't have to live here to school. And now, you know, two of my wife's surprised me. So came to graduation. One was an adult, he was a low, was a spirit. You know what they call, you know what we're called them? We're called the Unity. Because we're the biggest recruiting school in the county. that's how all the other communities perceive us, because we're not reproachable.
You had a graduation party for Hannah?
It was very small.
You didn't invite Freddie.
I didn't invite almost anybody. It was basically just family. It was family, it was my major one, it was her major one. So our kids are all about the same age. One of the little girls, son graduates next year. They call us, that's what, especially Springfield. Because Springfield, here's the thing, Springfield's smaller than Northern Home. Why? Are they just that much better at managing their
This is a guideline.
The problem we're running into is these districts, nobody anticipated the problem.
But of course, I'm
Because
right.
of the 2000 recession.
Right.
We've gone from, when I moved, they built this school, they actually added 10% when they, because I worked on that, like, I was all for it. It wasn't supposed to be.
My deadline was the night.
I've heard this.
But I did
Well, that's your answer.
it didn't get picked up because people didn't get their letters till but so they have 4 days, right? I was like, hey, if someone reminds people that like
Never
but anyway.
big money in it. He's sold for
Not much
the
of all of them and we didn't know and that's after I would at least I'm like, how about clean?
He told me no matter what, yeah, no matter what, Danielle's gone. He said it's up to the boys can stay here, the boys can get in there, we don't care. But Danielle's gone. He's retired himself.
Well, why didn't he just fix his children?
Well, he is, he's paying $3,000 for his children.
Put your name still for football, or like varsity?
He's on that.
No, for varsity. She asked me for varsity, and I said, well, Eric was going to do first, but you can put your
Do you know where the lessons are?
But yeah, still
You know where the lessons are?
Because I was like,
If you're coming south,
I'm really helpful.
right before you make the bend to come to my house, on the left-hand side.
So yeah, so
The south.
gonna see him call like 3 times during his like signing up. Well, like, see, I'm just put your name next to them. Why are you calling? I know. 100%. If anybody cancels,
No,
we
no,
better
other.
have a baby.
Oh, the
It's not
It's on the,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know
so
the
what was the
dates
first
yet.
house and the big
I'm
one was the second
thinking,
house?
I want the
It's
10th.
about probably
Well,
6 houses up from there on the left.
It's 7th. It'll be the 7th probably is what it'll actually.
Before the chalice.
Everybody
It's like 2 or 3
Fine,
houses
yeah.
before the chalice. Third house before the chalice.
My brother took a picture of me like a family gathering, and it's like me in the like from the back, and I'm like, oh god, do I look like? Stop it, right?
That's why we don't have eyes on the back, because I
Yeah.
don't like, oh my.
Like it was that effort.
Like, that's so much yeah, I saw the soccer already.
Soccer, yeah. Well, I'm hoping Gianna's gonna, because Steve keeps saying, oh, it'll be good, because nobody wants to do those ones. Soccer ones are long, so. Yeah. Johnny needs it, you know, maybe if nobody really signs up, I'll ask him. They're so long. When I do my leave.
So
You're gonna save me the money by not paying.
Michael told me no matter what you do.
Yeah.
West Reserve isn't that good?
It's her age, basketball coach, so she's going to for some.
Yeah, so the soccer ones are those are like pretty much the older parents that buy those things.
Oh, shoot, West Virginia. It's going to WVU? My niece is going to do it. At WVU.
She's going for chemical engineering, and that's a great she wants to get it. So she can use that. And she's in an entrepreneur, so they actually already have her scheduled to do that. classes and stuff, we have to walk.
I
She's
can have
gonna
them
have a
night,
professional.
well, I can have them like at April, Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah.
It's in the honors room.
My dad was at my niece. My niece's daughter. She's going to America. She's already got 2 years. She's way more than this.
And Mackenzie graduates.
She does. Obviously, was. Way down house. She's not close to one. No, she graduates. Really, West Virginia left that.
What's that down here, Beckley and Bluefield, that area down there? Kindred.
Well, it's 3.5 hours for me to go to Morgan. So I would say it's probably,
No, it isn't.
well,
I run Morgantown from my house to the dorm, it's 2 hours almost on a dot.
no way.
Yes, ma'am. You go out 14 to 60, takes 60 to get out through Pittsburgh, because unless you have a traffic jam, it takes me 2 hours.
Okay, so you can have, what's Little Washington look like? You go 7 you don't go
Washington,
7.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 79.
Well, that's where my sister went to meet me, and she said there's nothing there anymore.
Oh, there's everything there.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because we've been going out there for years, because we go to Eat Creek Lake almost every fall.
I'm out going to place to eat. I don't know a frick time weeks ago. Then some years ago when I was a kid.
My wife's aunt and uncle are from lived in Baltimore. And my wife's family is from Mount. So they would meet at Eat Creek every fall. Yeah, the first one, Tracy and I were.
I bet that's still up, right? Is that still
Oh,
up?
you haven't been down to Eat Creek?
I haven't been down there in 25 years.
Our biggest regret is about 14 years ago, when the furnaces were super short supply. Walmart was offering $10,000 worth of buy transfer dollars to go from America to South Africa. So we could have got paid $10 each to go down there and work it. And I thought, no, this was terrible. But then now when I think about it, they've got so much of the tax base. Most of the houses on Deep Creek Lake are $1 million now. Oh, and lockdown, a little, if
And
you
my uncle
find
bought his, I bet he had to buy his 50 years ago.
who?
You're not doing that job yet. Wait, why wouldn't you do it just for someone to do?
Oh, I can't answer, but I would like it.
And my cousin was saying that they still even run that place in Deep Creek.
They were just down there where it was,
Oh, well, yeah, West went down, we went skiing there last year.
yeah, they were.
In December, the kids all,
I'll do it.
So right there.
oh, the Gold Coaster, yeah, that's a West, that's right, over there was.
Yeah, but they're, you know,
Well,
they
really,
take their boat out on the lake.
oh, I mean, have you ever been down there?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
That's where I learned to watch ski.
take a look at this fall, and October, when the leaves start. Yeah, it's about 2:45.
So I'm getting to that point.
It's 45 minutes. It's 45 minutes from Morgantown. Morgantown's 2 hours, and Deep Creek is 2 hours. It's the first thing they decided to go once it's east, he said. Oh, the fun, I've got.
Because
Yeah, it's probably due south.
Whenever you pull it out, like,
If you're
but I'm letting you know. I don't even do
straight
that.
south by there.
I mean, okay, you will, you'll do that, but I wouldn't.
Ricky.
So what's he gonna say? Okay.
And we can get.
He doesn't change.
Control, well, Anna, because it's rates, but it's tuition.
Yeah.
Ricky.
No, don't worry about it. I mean, you can still do it, just send it to me, but you don't have to know.
he can do it.
Yeah, he can, you know, he's lazy.
No, he's not.
Absolutely lazy, he'll be the first person to tell you. Oh, well, I mean, if, let's see, I can play a computer game, or I can study, I can do it all on a computer. I think they comes out of the dog or something like that, mine's on the first.
Well, they want to change it to like minus whatever. And I think yes.
I still can't find his laptop. I locked it up. Or his cord, I think I took the power cord or something too. His PlayStation. His PlayStation, I took the PlayStation.
Oh, there's something, poor kid.
Right. Other than that, I think the tier.
He's the nicest kid.
Yeah,
He's always
it just makes more sense.
wherever he sees him, wherever. He always comes up to him. Always. He is.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I didn't know he was going to do so. Oh, I must let him be my handwriting.
What year is she?
She'll be her first year.
Oh, yeah.
But she, well, I don't know if she's first year, she's already been to 2 years. She works in the emergency room. She's a translator, yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, she's a translator for the doctors.
Jeff Curry told me that.
Friends, two of the friends I know, and they were, one was married, one was.
Signed this good for a year, whatever you have to sign.
I see this guy.
I mean, yeah, it's 4 times, so, yeah, I mean, I think you have
The
to.
hospital she's working is for my sister back. I said, that's not a very good thing. Grandma passed away.
But he does still
Yeah.
face for things.
But yeah, she works in the emergency.
Monday,
She's
my brother-in-law is on their companies had their week was like Friday, and it was Monday, it was our first day, because our was Sunday. Sit down.
My dad begged me
at this
to
board house.
shoot as close as you begged me to do the band.
This couple is just but I didn't think anything of it because she had
Gordon B. is the he's president of state 2 different terms. He's now the president of West Virginia.
guys with pop card shorts, you know, it's like balance black tennis shoes, you know, because they look, you know, like foreigners or. Yeah. So she's like,
I never went to college.
then I said, yeah, she's this guy. Dylan
Indigo, that Twitter.
Baker, Homeland.
His nephew, when we went up to Michigan, but all that Twitter. I hate that. All you see is Twitter.
How does it look at well,
So I didn't go there off the time I worked for there, because I need to call, and I can't call. All you see is that Twitter stuff.
she played Lena Dunham's mom on Girls. And that's what I knew her. But I can't feel her. You don't
West
know,
Virginia,
like, so I should girl.
West Virginia.
And he said, oh, my wife, he walks in and he was
Some other my age girls are and just, you know, because nobody recognizes
you are.
Christmas, but we were saying like this, and they were like, okay.
You need to come down for 5 days. He said, you won't be out there. You're from
You know, so I'm like texting
my
some
God.
you know, but then
He's
Matt, my brother's heard him tell this guy named Dylan Baker.
But he was
Oh my God, because it's not, again, it's not so much the baby. Well, he's been on really good shows, good movies, because he looks.
But he's not WVU.
I would never recognize him because I
What's his name? E. Gordon.
Is it good?
D. Gordon.
As an adult, it's good entertainment for.
My son actually
Yeah.
watched TV with me.
I just finished a series.
Have you guys seen the Wolf on Wall Street?
Yes.
Okay, so you know like how, you know,
This guy.
Denver and Dallas are my
The
home.
one who's had to stop and take the acid.
Yeah, I recognize them.
See, you know him, but you're like.
No idea. They're in the basement with Jeff and
No, exactly.
I'm up there watching it, and it's like they're
Oh,
strippers and drugs, and they come up there. I was watching it, but then they came up, and I couldn't find their remote.
Oh my God, that is a fun one too.
And I'm laying on the couch with my swimsuit on. Like, go back to the basement.
Listen, I watched
I told her she was.
Cool.
Well, they
Did
carved
you watch
them
the
together.
whole series? All of them. Is it what's it called? Peaky Blinders.
I
It's really hard to understand. But it's so good. You know what it really is? It's the
But
English
she
version.
had it
I
like
know.
that.
Yeah.
I told her to come
They
to my house.
Yep.
Just like he did.
She's already.
English like back in the 20s. You know, it sets in England, it's only like whole episodes of season. Yeah, it's short, and there's only like 6 of them. It's super good.
She's actually going down.
I think they will, but
Super good.
Tom Hardy is in it.
They have, it's called Adventure West Virginia.
Butcher.
And they have it.
He was
for
in
four
The Revenant.
weeks in
Oh,
July
was
for the
Yes.
freshman one. He actually does the course.
He was
No,
in
listen.
But you go down and she's involved with the engineers. They go down to the new report, They get to.
I never watched Hard Dogs or anything.
Supervise.
Because I know it was good movie, but.
They get to go do this.
I know.
She's going for $95 for the whole.
I'm not kidding.
Oh, the way I
Especially now.
And they
50
feed
Shades
you.
of Grey.
Yeah, they feed you, they put you up and they feed you.
No, wait, so what's I watch now? I watched
But the engineers.
7 seconds. But you know, did you watch No. Did you, like the second season is
Oh, I think.
They set it up but like I was telling her, there's 2 seasons. But I was telling her, I'm like, as an adult, it's complete entertainment value for me, but if I have a child with a kid, it's totally different. Yeah.
79, 77.
I'd like to get her perspective.
Yeah.
I was
They hit every single thing.
Yeah.
This school is like, my was just stuck up into a black hole.
But I'm not, I haven't like followed it.
You can shoot that screen.
Are you still in the first season? Well, see, in the second season, what happens to him would not happen to him. Like,
Nineteen South, you missed all those S-curves coming out of Charleston. I know exactly what you're talking about. We gotta try to.
I don't want to depress her.
what he did in the first season wouldn't have happened, like, it just wouldn't have gone that way. I think it's a very nerdy.
Yeah, Virginia, there's a town, so you guys.
For being 2000, you know, it's very interesting.
Then do you take that 73, 74 corridor?
Oh, I know.
You go all the way down to Charleston and all that.
Yeah, and they have like.
Let's write it down, here's our paper.
Yeah, because they got most of the 73, 74 corridor
I
from
know.
just south of Virginia, North Carolina. I think it was that Tyler.
Yeah, with the mushroom.
Yeah, you get off of, you gotta play that.
You always take it to a new level. But like the movie theater.
You don't have.
No, but see, that's what I mean, it's like, they made this nice setting. But then your actors, it's like, your R-rated actors. It is, it really is. And
I have no interest in that.
I don't know.
I have no interest.
Or I'm just gonna black things out.
But don't do the way your personality is.
Netflix.
You're writing it down.
Yeah, anybody I know, I'm telling
I only
you.
watched what I was watching.
Speed, because it's a big speed trap.
It's like reading a book.
55, that's a
Story, I get best to it, and then I'm
Take
like,
14.
like I read it.
14 east of the PA.
And it's a reason.
Like you're already spelled. Keep going to.
No, but
It's gonna be a movie.
I'll wait for the.
But I read it like in a day. Last week, and it was really good. Like, it's a good picture. It's easy.
Yeah, well, it passed,
As I was reading.
79 is past it. So it's out
Okay, I want
all the
the
way
series.
into West Virginia.
Ozark.
So you hit Summers.
What's it about?
It's Jason Bateman and his family. Mom is Lily. The 2 of them are awesome together. It's a lot of humor, but it's not like
Yeah,
campy.
Summers will pick up
But
19 South.
they have it's Chicago based. Money
And you
doesn't
take
like
19
going
South
on.
and all the
They
way
have to
until you
relocate
come back to the.
really quick to the Ozarks. And it's just
For
them
Barbara.
having to, and the relationship, because they cheat on each other, and the family's broken in the sense of like, you know,
Okay, how many
You
seasons?
basically come in.
there's one, but the new
about
one's coming out the end of
You know, I watched
Obviously,
some of the, like, did you watch it on a second? No, is that good?
That's when you dump back into the West Virginia.
And I are a little, raunchy, just saying.
We used to
That's
do
good.
that. We went to West Virginia, we went to the beach every single year for years when kids were little.
Yeah.
Because- Yeah, that's what we were saying.
I swear.
See, that's new. We stayed at, we stayed at Ashford, we stayed at Ashford.
I don't have Okay, we'll have her.
Ocean Bay, Baywatch, Ocean Bay, Baywatch.
A little, I like to be intrigued, I like twists, I like plot twists, I like to be told. By the way, I totally knew parking was not there, just
Beach,
called it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, when he got in that room and started announcing about it, I was like,
Oh, did he watch it too?
Yeah.
so we need something that we watch together. We don't like a lot of stuff.
That's a good.
See, I watch ahead and then I go watch it again. My husband Travis is.
That's
Do you watch it too?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the
So
good
then
stuff
I
I
just
say
have
with
to-
Chris.
I just don't bother him because he doesn't have a lot of tolerance for.
I have my
some of
own,
the
like my
serious
smut stuff, like my Bravo stuff. I watch that by myself, and then older shows like Chris and I will watch. You know,
Okay,
like
so
the
I'm not sure if the others one thing. It's very good. Me too. Well, I could probably watch two.
watch like one episode.
There's never anything on TV. I pay so much money for cable, but I don't know why.
This is my favorite for a resolution that passed the June 9th.
Is that what?
The dance one.
Whereas it is urgent
I
importance
don't know,
for
somebody blonde hair looks very good, and I don't know the
these new fields
girl.
of available.
Maddie, we used to watch
Yeah,
it.
it was
Oh, I
like,
can't
it
come back to work.
probably is, because there's a Valerie.
Yes.
And the completion of the special.
It was Pittsburgh, it was a mindless interview.
Before like we went.
I actually just watched one of the last episodes like this week, because I had it recorded and I didn't have anything else to watch. Because there's nothing, there's nothing.
Did you watch Master of None? I didn't watch this past week though.
This
So, well, do you know what the storyline is?
urgent assistance is justifies dispensing of usual
I
procedures
think
for
it was last
advertising
year.
and public bidding. So they don't award the baseball field contract is
Watch
out
like the cinema.
without going through the normal
Yes.
bidding.
Oh, yeah, what's her name? Should I watch that?
Yeah, if there's a second, yeah, you have to watch the first season.
Yeah.
Some raunchiness in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What about, that's what Lindsay said to watch.
You haven't watched that yet?
436, June.
Talk about it is the best show.
Did you watch that before all these others?
Yes. I watch it with Bob. I love it because there's like a bunch of seasons on and it comes back on at some point.
Okay, I will watch that.
It's like a fun show.
Could be anyone. I'm leaving, I'm not staying.
I know. I was just chit-chatting.
Oh, yeah, me too, I'm only saying. Yeah, you can usually leave right now. I can because I'm sure that I wasn't there.
I know.
Just a little bit photographs.
What purpose did this serve? We found out it was swimming. It is, it's a done deal, it's nothing to do about it. And I have no, I mean, children.
I know how much lunch it was.
Did they say the adult ones were? Weren't they just $3 last year? Or $1.75? They're $3. It's running like $3 this year.
That was just a little, that was just a little.
I never even get through it, and that's never good.
Oh yeah.
That's expensive. And sport.
Oh,
That was perfect. The only thing I don't play there is, that is probably.
But I don't know that. But why would you need their baseball field?
Go have some of the meeting staff, we're Jackie and we're out here, we're talk to Ava, I think.
I'm sure you know.
Who they was to do, it was a $3 They just got a little cocky.
Well, I got her
I
nice
watched their game, and they were doing so good. And then all of a sudden, they were ahead the whole game, and then all of a sudden, it just, I think they got it really too short.
Hopefully this year they'll be better though, 8-year older. All right, Shane, what's it?
Yeah.
Well, here's my next course of action. I see my
You
friends.
know, there's a lot too is
My son, her grades,
he's
he's
in
playing
that country, so he'll watch on phone, like he watches
His
something.
wife got him a big
Like if you
fight.
ask him, like he knows.
With another team. Well, first I'm sat
Like
next
then watch it.
She first we said, and she said, well, we'll win because we beat your race. Okay, man, I said, well, Shannon, that's not true because when you play the whole season, these guys get better. Oh, no, we've got this. I was going to warn you because we were good one day. And then I warned
We
you.
were in two totally different.
What was that school?
I just love it because when we did ACT, you were
Those
Yeah.
kids
and
get
Kristen sits down behind us and she's like so mad. She's
like, well,
I've seen
we
this
beat
before.
them in our regular
You know,
season.
it was just
And
this
the coach
innocent,
tells
like,
me, oh, you got this day.
like, oh,
They
remember the times.
lost.
Like, oh, I've seen this movie. Yeah, I'm sure. But I think she was like texting and I fell asleep probably, and then she went, oh yeah, I've seen this. I would do that.
No, not this.
All right, friends. Hi, are you guys ready to do or are you finished? No raisin, because you know Jeff's not doing it. Oh my God, he's such a man.
That helps with that. To put to bed. I just have to find mine.
How many kids do you have?
Two.
Oh, two.
Two.
And one graduated, so an 18 and a
Yeah, my 18 is fine.
Wait, should you put
this back on, Sherry? How'd you turn it on? No, it's just on standby. Yeah, I don't know. Put it back.
That's where my relatives are in Hubbard. They're where you are, right home.
I can tell you with girls soccer, they got this program for about 5.
Where's your car? That's yours. All right. Check you later. No, you're gonna text me when you start watching. I will. Listen, we should go to lunch one
Now
day.
you're on stand
When
up.
I get back from vacay. Okay. Yeah.
Our neighbor.
Oh, for volleyball. She's really good, she's better. I mean, the coach, I might say the coach of Dayton from Dayton University, Dayton came like that, or is he here?
They said they already signed Jacob for YSU, Jake Gary.
Oh, really?
Yes.
For baseball or for,
I did that. Honestly.
what's Jake on for baseball? Because he's a tremendous baseball player. But there you go, okay, baseball.
My son's getting sweet.
No, we got for everybody that's ever, I don't know, I don't know the kid from that.
He's not a professional. He shouldn't be passing up soccer.
Well, Rick gets messed up, I'm like, Rick, I said, if the kid's better in class, that's the way it
See,
should be.
That's the way it should be, Rich, I agree with
That's the way it should be, I don't.
you. He was good at basketball court.
And that's what whole pitch is, because their daughter didn't take those fun time, and she showed up because
I
she was a
thought she
freshman.
did that. She was out there all the time, Rich.
But she, I don't think she started. Although, well, she might have, because didn't we have?
Oh, she did. That's why I couldn't believe they did that, because they played her all the time.
I can't mind what I said, I keep the boys here because our academics are still over there, West Virginia's academics are 12.
His boys not too good.
They don't play anything.
Well, yeah, they did. I took them,
Basketball.
7th grade.
Yeah,
Because
they-
they're twins, right?
They
Yeah,
don't
they,
have, they just don't have the drive, they don't have,
see, you either have it or you don't.
you can't make an athlete. Michael never played.
They tried and tried so hard to
6'7".
my stepson. They had put that kid in everything, and done everything for him. He just doesn't have it.
Well, even you can have it and not want to do it.
No, he's just not got it. He really works hard, but he just, you've seen him play, Jimmy.
I tell everybody, if I could do it all over again, I would just have my kids play golf, starting like 8th grade. And I passed.
My son's playing softball. with my granddaughter.
I said, baseball and softball, in my opinion, are the absolute worst sports you can hear kids involved in. Not from a sports standpoint, but they have the absolute craziest, nuttiest parents. God, Mike Heelan, rest his soul, because I like Mike and I like man. God rest his soul. The first year we moved out here, Mike Ritter puts together a team for Mackenzie. They were all kids going into kindergarten. Or no, going into first grade. It's all first graders. So he picks Mackenzie and his daughter Winnie and JoJo Youngs. And basically we live in the Highlands. He figured, you know, hey, if that way, if carpool. Yeah, JoJo, Jordan. She's going to graduate in a year. She gets her nursing degree next spring. Nice girl, bless you, sweetheart. Although her and Tom, her and David will go. I think dated since they were fifth grade. Tom and David's not dated. I thought those two were getting married for sure. I don't know, Brandon Young's older sister. But yeah, because Mackenzie and JoJo played on Todd Thomas's Travis.
Yeah, right.
Everybody called her JoJo. They played, Todd called them the brick wall. They were his defense. The two girls were in defense and the boys ran up front. Todd, I mean, if you want us to thank somebody for the soccer team, in all honesty, Todd Thomas is the one. Because Todd started out that travel soccer when the kids were little. I mean, I remember.
The British people coming over for the
Oh,
soccer team.
you know how much money he paid for that? That was all in his pocket.
Really?
Yeah, but Todd didn't tell, he's never told people that, but Todd funded. We gave the kid our car. That kid broke our car for 3 months one year. Really? It was Tracy's Randy saw. You know, it took like 10,000 miles. He was driving up to Niagara Falls.
No, but my daughter, she was only like 4 years old. Stephanie was from Robin, very nice.
Yeah, Todd, sure. But Todd, I mean, that team with like Brandon and all those kids that went to state, that was mostly, almost every one of those kids played for Todd's travel teams. The sad thing was the girls, I mean, the girls, he had a really good girls team with Hope and Hannah and then lost all in the ball.
They say, oh, so good. I can't help it now, that's for sure. My granddaughter don't do any sports.
The problem with girls soccer has always had two coaches that run the team on their daughter. First was Bill Caldwell and his two daughters. Lindstrom's running around his daughters.
What are they going to do this year?
I don't know. We're going to go to the Niles game, and that's not what I saw on the
I said to Chloe, you don't have something to do. Well, she gets no encouragement. Her stepmother said to her, I don't know why you play soccer, you ought to not be for the team. So why are you
going? We have to, you're a freshman, you're not going to play much as a freshman. Not many, I mean, girls go to
cross country, that was a bad thing.
They travel for 6 years.
Stepmother did cross country, and then there was comparison.
Oh, Mike, so he puts together, so Mike Reardon puts together a team, all first graders, all kids, most of the kids in the Isles. I remember the first team we played Mike Heelan. It's the South Range coach pitch all-star team, all second graders, First, we're in the outfield, first inning. Pitch up the ball, girl whacks it, goes to the shortstop. Shortstop throws it to the first baseman, goes past the first baseman. Take second base, steal second. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? It's coach pitch. T-ball. If you can't, if they can't hit it after like 3 pitches, they hit it off the tee. Like, take second. The girl grabs it, throws it to second, goes into the outfield. Go to third. I'm like, this is nuts.
You can see it now.
I did South Range baseball for 1 year. That was it. We were
I put my boys out of soccer and baseball. There was so much fighting and swearing, I said to my husband, my boys are not going to go through this.
Oh, your brother-in-law was legendary. Your mom was crazy. He was crazy about South Range baseball.
No.
He used to have, when he was on the court, he had a huge screen baseball.
Oh, did they?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like face to face, probably. It's a.
You can't do that. Although our president does that. I'm telling you, we had a hot weekend
with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they own a place up on the Elk Lake up in Gray Lake, Michigan. It's gorgeous. And they're definitely not Trump people. They are all Democrat. Hillary, Obama. Oh, was it a weekend? I tell you, I was never so speechless in my life. And she'd say, those idiots that put that Trump in there, I'd like to meet those idiots. I'm like, oh.
To the 115 long view.
So I couldn't imagine Hillary running this country. I couldn't imagine. But you know, I still think the Lord put him in because I don't know how else he got in. I mean, because nobody was supposed to like him. I mean, when they would interview, oh, nobody likes him, nobody likes him. But the Lord put him in. I
stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning.
I don't want to let me stay up. He said, get in this bed, go to bed. What happens, what happens.
We stayed up with it.
When I got up in the morning, I could not believe when they said, I was hysterical.
When they called Wisconsin for Trump around 10:30, 11 o'clock, I was going crazy. I was going crazy. I said, it's over. She can't win. She can't win. As soon as Wisconsin fell, I knew it was over. And then the dawn was
we got Obama, though. We accepted it. They still haven't accepted it.
I didn't like it, but I mean.
I didn't like it at all, but we accepted it. Boy, now with him. I mean, CBS, that's my nephew is in charge of all CBS News, morning news from 7 to 9. He's to this day trying to find some way to get him out.
He's going to get reelected unless something major happens in Congress.
Oh, my sister says he's going to get shot. I said, ooh.
If Obama, if you could have some Ku Kluxers from the South shoot him, I thought for sure something.
Oh, my brother-in-law told her, my nephew told me, Janet, don't you worry, Obama's never going to make it. Well, they did 2 times.
Can you imagine what happened in the country? It would have been a mess. So we would have had riots, people getting shot. That would have been, this will last thing long there. I mean, that would have been.
Well, I know my sister-in-law said that since he's got in, I mean, the stock market's been terrible, but my stocks are going up. The stocks are great. That's what my sister said, we're millionaires. He's like, woo, I may be going to retire in 2 years. Yeah, he thought so.
Yeah, I mean, the stock market would be where it's not.
Oh, my God. And then immigration. Somebody has to get it under control.
My wife's going to go on a cruise with us. Lives in Baltimore, so she's a big East Coast local. And one night at dinner, I started on.
Oh, no.
And she was talking for 2 days. I was like, I mean, to me, it's common sense. You can't, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country.
My sister-in-law lives in Riverside, California, and she had to sell her house to that. She said, it's like living in Mexico. Wow. She's a nurse at the hospital, and she said, you would not believe what's going on. I would not believe what's going on. That's why I couldn't work in
Wow. Well, Schuster's going to ask you about your 2 medical missions to Mexico. We went down to,
I love you. He was another problem.
We went down to.
We got the nicest card when we got bus driver of the year from him.
From Fred's.
He wrote down there on the card, I remember we still have meetings at the table about Mrs. Freedy always brings snacks.
Well, Fred and I knew Fred from being a drug rep for when I was in Niles 25 years ago. I first met Fred.
Is he and his wife still together?
Oh, yeah. We had dinner with him a week ago Saturday.
He's down there at that place.
He's down in Chippewa, it's Lake Chippewa, or whatever that is.
Yeah, way
down Rogers, you hang the left.
Yeah.
We didn't know it was there, you never
Oh, I
was
know
there.
that. He was a old man, tell you.
Well, Delaney DeCello's always blamed him for me. Hey, look what you did, you created it. She told me.
Is that what she said?
She blamed Fred for me. It's like, he would never have been like that if it wasn't for you.
Is that true?
Yeah, honest to God.
Oh.
But that, Fred had nothing to do with it. We were 2 peas in a pod. I mean, we were just like each other. We're tools.
I always liked him. He was always honest. You never had to worry.
Yeah.
What he said, he meant.
Yeah,
He was a truthful person, and I like a truthful person. I don't like those that look at you one way and lie to you the other way. I know that. But I do. And I do, well, the Lord always says you might as well say this to think it, because it's already
day. And that's the way I feel. Say it.
That whole baseball thing is actually what got me all started on South Ridge. Because I remember Fred was friends with Mark Whitman. And he and I were walking, because we walked every morning. We walked, middle of winter, we'd be out walking, like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I remember we walking one day.
Why aren't you walking?
Was on here.
Call up my wife and get her out, she needs to be walking.
You sound like my husband.
But Fred and I walked one day, he said, he said, Mark and Ralph were worried about Dennis. And I said, I said, Dennis has spent all kinds of money on this baseball field, on these sports projects. That's what you talk about. I said, I don't know. I said, Mark just told me that they're spending, him and Ralph aren't really afford it. They voted, go along to get along, God forbid anybody stick up for what's right. They voted for the $450,000 baseball fields. And that's not, I think Ralph's goofy, but I think that's not Ralph. I mean, Ralph's, he's old Greenford farmer. We don't need $450,000 baseball
That's
fields.
right.
But he voted for it. I think the problem with Ralph is Ralph won't stick up for it. Those go along to get along. Go along to get along is the South Ridge motto.
Well, no, that's not true.
How do you figure?
Well, we had the old one, we
had Mr. Hall.
And Robinette.
I
We
didn't
had
think
like
Robinette was
Robinette home, Lord. You didn't spend $1. I see you knew what you were doing. But Mr. Hall was pretty good too.
Well, that's the whole problem with Dennis is there's just no accountability.
Well, why would you be like that? You didn't come from the big
Like I
school.
told them tonight, 3 years ago, you had the audacity to tell this community that they needed to pass a new levy for $900,000. And if they didn't pass it, it was doom, gloom, despair, so it fails. You lay off Dana Vineski, you fire 30 aides and everybody else, nobody that's making any money. And then a month and a half later, Jimmy finds $600,000 in the budget that really wasn't there anyway to find. He just took it
How
out
do
of
you
the
do that?
Because he was using assumptions that Kasich made. Kasich kept saying, I'm going to come after this pot of money. And then Kasich decided, I want to be president, ran for president. Well, guess what he did? He quit saying, I'm going to go after that pot of money. When he lost, guess what he did? He came after the pot of money. So that's, it wasn't, we're so addicted to it in a moment now, it'd be virtually impossible for us to get off the road.
Not sure.
You'd have to downsize it.
Well, yeah.
Oh, but I'm not.
What the community.
Well, here's the thing. If you look at the kindergarten now through basically eighth grade.
Well, he said the main thing of the enrollment was to even have my kids to make a class. That's not true.
Well, then how does Springfield do it? How does United do it? How does Columbiana do it? How does Crestview do it? That all of us kids and us.
Do you have enrollment for? Columbiana has open enrollment.
I'm just based on last year's enrollment.
When I talked to Gina, she said it was 75, and that didn't include any that may come with.
For kindergarten? Then you better be down to 3 teachers. Because you don't need 4 teachers and 75 kids in a class.
I noticed.
So if it's 100, then you're basically, if it's 75 resident kids, and then you added.
Well, that was
picked
in
up
the
25
spring,
over
so that would be, you had to do your, what is it, they come and sign it, so we'll do that, so that would be 109, does that sound right? Right.
But eventually it's gonna, and what Jimmy will tell you is that's, okay, let's say we picked up 25 kids. At $6,000 a kid, that's $150,000. That more than pays for that first grade teacher. That's the way he looks at it. And we pay for the first grade teacher, plus we have all that money left over. But eventually, if you look at the actual cost of educating a kid at Southbridge, according to Dennis's own numbers in March, it's $9,600 a kid. So what you're doing is you're kicking the can down the road. Right now, you're getting more money than you can spend, but your expenses are still huge. You're not cutting your expenses off. Eventually, the numbers are going to catch up to you. What they're doing is keep adding more and more money. Just to keep adding more and more money. Eventually,
It's not worth it. But
I had a parent that was after
they just keep getting
That's what they said in the newspaper.
This is what you need to read this one. Okay, it's 8:28, we're back in open session. Mr. Dunn, would you like to go through personnel?
Absolutely, thank you. I have two that I'll be recommending for substitute teachers for the 18-19 school year, James Fantone and Paul Munson. Elizabeth Reigert for cafeteria aide, custodial aide, substitute bus driver, itinerant personnel, playground aides. She would fit in that category classified. Accept the resignation of Teresa Ferris as a part-time aide for the 18-19 school year. Accept the resignation of Diane Krumpak as varsity cross-country coach for the 18-19 school year. Accept the resignation of Mark Bush as assistant varsity cross-country coach for the 18-19 school year. Approve the recall of Gina Calpin from the RIF list, recall list as per the SRCEA, SRBOE negotiated agreement. Mrs. Calpin's recall position will be a part-time classified aide, so the resignation of Teresa Ferentz enabled the recall of one classified employee to come back. Approve the following supplemental contracts for the 18-19 school year. Nicole Freifogel, speech and debate head coach. He's splitting that contract with Nicole Rothbauer, speech and debate assistant coach, 6% each as a split contract, and recommending to approve Mark Bush as a varsity cross-country coach. Approve extra contract days worked for Ryan Dunn, Director of Transportation, for 17-18 school year, as documented and approved by the superintendent. And I have a number of individuals for the fall sports season as scorekeepers, scoreboard operators, video board operators, public address announcers, ticket takers, filmers, statisticians, music operators, trainer, and play clock operators. And you see the list in front of you there. Would you like me to name them? Or?
No.
Okay. And that is it for personnel.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I motion.
Jerry motions, do I have a second?
Second.
Who wants it? Okay, Amy seconds. Roll call?
Gilbert Christian? Yes. Terry Lally?
Yes.
Earl Quince? Yes. Amy White? Yes. Corey Yocum?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Lindstrom, Capoeira.
Very good. Okay, last thing is adjournment. Any takers? Okay, Ralph moves, do I have a second?
I second.
Jerry seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 8:30.
Statistician, this is spelled. I can get that.
Yeah, no, that
General Steel can give that for you. She's in a rehab facility, I don't know which one. I just found out.
So I want to make sure that you start.
Yes, she has a General Steel.
for like 5 minutes, are you guys taking for like 5 minutes? All right.
Could you see her here? Is he
Thank you for
I may meet you guys tomorrow. Katie will take care of the time you're going, but Lucy's got so I may. That's Katie. And then as soon as you get your browse, let me know and I'll do the postcard. Yeah, and I will talk to Katie about this. Yeah.
How is Sam? Sam is fine. They're working therapy. Right? And what happened to Sam? He had one of the lots all over the top of his legs. That's him? No, oh, Sam. Yeah, husband's yeah, he's crazy. He'll never grow up. He'll never grow up, but no, he's gonna, he's back to work and.
Jim, I got all these for you if you want.
That's what she said.
And he's gonna stay
And all
home
this
and
is-
work like he should.
Well, I'm trying